on the grand scale of success in the NFL, that's a pretty low bar, is just to be the best of 4 teams. So clearing that low bar, but that was the first hurdle we had to clear, is to win the division. And they did it. First time in 30 whatever years it was, 33 years. So then the next hurdle was a little bit higher, was to win that playoff game. And they cleared that. And the next hurdle was a little bit higher, was to win a playoff game to send them to the NFC title game. And they cleared that. And then it felt like the next hurdle was the second highest hurdle to clear in the league. And that was to get over that hurdle and get to the Super Bowl. And it felt like they were clearing it. And like their back foot clipped the hurdle and they went down. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They were winning that race, and it was like the second to last hurdle, and their back foot clipped the hurdle, and they went down. But we've been waiting so long to have a season like that I am probably taking into account how grateful I am to the people that brought us there. Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, and Jared Goff. And Goff, in many ways, it's the fact that I was skeptical and really wasn't even considering that Jared Goff could be an answer at quarterback. And he won me over. And when you don't believe something and someone changes your conviction and makes you believe in them, I feel like your belief in them is even stronger than it would be had you had faith going in. Like, I came at this from I won't say a negative perspective, but I doubted him. I doubted that he could be the answer and do all that he's done already. But because he has done that and won me over, my convictions are even stronger than they would be otherwise. And I'm not interested in moving on from Jared Goff. I'm interested in building around Jared Goff and keeping Jared Goff here for the long term. And is it partially influenced by a degree of gratitude that should have nothing to do with what they do next? And I keep thinking back to Dan Campbell's, what he said after the season was over about falling in love with your own guys. Am I doing that? Yep, I am. And I'm looking in the mirror and saying, yes, I am. Now, I still don't think it's wise to give Hendon Hook, to let Hendon Hooker's presence impact your decision on Jared Goff. But I have a pretty strong conviction that Jared Goff has done something that we waited forever for, and we've turned around 35 minutes after the season is done, and people are looking at the next guy already. And I'm like, wow. And it's probably too emotional and too much based on gratitude than just the football part of it. And I'll admit that. But that's why I got triggered yesterday. And I need to let that go a little bit, in my opinion.
Well, people are always going to have a very strong opinion on the quarterback. And I think those that haven't bought into Jared Goff, and I don't think it's a large percentage, but there's a percentage out there, those people that don't believe in him think that the Lions reached the highest peak they could ever possibly reach with Jared Goff at quarterback. And then you see the quarterbacks that made it to the Super Bowl with Brock Purdy and Patrick Mahomes, and they possess something that Jared Goff doesn't have. And it gets back to the whole mobility thing. And people ignore what happened during the season. And oh, by the way, there were defensive limitations that, that's the bigger issue with the Lions than the quarterback's inability to move, because they were able to put up plenty of points despite the handicap of having a quarterback that can't move. But the quarterback can think, and the quarterback can throw, and the quarterback can lead, and does all those things extraordinarily well. But some people just don't want to see it. They think, oh, that's it. What we saw last season, that's it. He did the same thing with the Rams, got him actually to the Super Bowl, but couldn't get it done. And they'll say he's not as good as Stafford. So look, Stafford put him in the same situation. Stafford won a Super Bowl. It's going to be frustrating because you're going to have that from here on out. It's just the way it is until you see a sample of Hendon Hooker that proves otherwise. And I don't suspect we're going to see something that's going to prove otherwise. I think we're going to see something that says, "Oh, good, he looks like he can actually be a capable backup to Jared Goff." And if Jared Goff gets hurt, then I feel very confident that Hooker goes in there and can get the job done. But that's just going to spur the conversation in the other direction with the Goff haters because of what Hooker could represent. What he could represent is a massive difference in pay that allows you to go out and get other players. What he could represent is a difference in talent that is demonstrable on the field because he can move and he does throw the deep ball. But that's what we saw in college. We don't know what we see in the pros yet, but we'll see enough at some point. But for people to say right now, for that guy to call in yesterday and say right, and he wasn't even that. He just said, you know what, I want to see Hooker.
And I'm like,
and I think
over the quarterback that just took us to the NFC Championship game in a game that they didn't lose because of him.
Right, but it's the impatience of it all. It's the impatience of not being able to see Hooker all last year in his rookie season because he was hurt, because he was rehabbing from the injury. People so desperately want to see what the nice, bright, shiny new thing can do.
Could be a new boat.
Could be a new boat.
248-539-9797. Let's go to Sheldon. You're on 97.1 The Ticket. Hi, Sheldon.
Hey guys. I was listening when you got triggered, and you being triggered actually triggered me because I agreed with the fan that had called. And I got some points, and just hear my points out, please. I think when we did get to the NFC Championship game, we had 2 home games against 2 lesser opponents. I know we haven't been there and we haven't looked up and got there before, and Goff did play good in both of those games. He even played good in the first half against San Francisco. But when the coach started to falter, the players faltered, and I believe Goff started throwing nervous balls also. I think when he's under pressure, and I don't mean being blitzed, I mean the momentum turning around, he gets scared. Now, I don't believe in giving him $50 million. I think to get to the pinnacle, I think he won't be who we think he is. He won 2 playoff games, and even my father is like, I don't care. He won 2 playoff games. Everybody that's older, he won 2 playoff games, and they don't care. But you just can't be that reckless. And if our organization sign him, I'm all for it because everything our organization's been doing over the last 2 years has been right. But if they hold off, I am not upset either.
That's trusting in Brad Holmes.
Yeah.
That shouldn't trigger you.
It's not.
You're okay with that?
I mean, I'm not triggered. I'm doing my best not to be.
I don't like dismissing 2 playoff wins.
Right.
Don't do that.
Right.
It's hard to win in the NFL, and it's really hard to win playoff games in the NFL. So don't dismiss the 2 playoff wins because you think they were against easier opponents. They were 2 playoff wins, and the Rams were the hot team.
Yeah, the Rams, a lot of people were picking the Rams to win. I mean, I don't want to rewrite history and say that the Rams were favored because they weren't. But a lot of people were picking the Rams to win that game.
Yeah, I also think people are short-selling how well Goff played in the NFC Championship game.
So it's funny. I just looked back at his numbers, his splits, because he said Goff played nervous in the second half. And I'd have to go back and find examples. I wish,
he may just be looking at the 4th down throw.
4th down throw that was still catchable. He went 13 of 20 for 145 yards in the first half. He went 12 of 21 for 128 yards in the second half. I mean, they're very similar statistically, but that doesn't mean he played as well.
With 2 giant drops.
2 giant drops. 248-539-9797. More of your phone calls and feedback coming up. It's Carson Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. Doug Karsh. Look, I admitted, and Scott Anderson, by the way, I admitted I got triggered yesterday in the drive home, and I shouldn't have. And I'm like, why does this stuff bother me so much? Why am I getting so mad when people call up and are suggesting that they'd really prefer to see Hendon Hooker or are more intrigued with Hendon Hooker, so much so that they don't want to extend Goff or hesitate to extend Goff because they want to see Hendon Hooker. And I'm thinking to myself, maybe it's just it's the gratitude. It's the fact that we had a quarterback do something, lead a team, and he led a team. It wasn't just him, but he was, made some huge plays in a postseason run that took us to unprecedented heights. First Lions team ever to play a third playoff game. They won a division for the first time in 30 plus years. They made it to the NFC title game for the second time ever. And people already want to get rid of him. It just didn't seem, I don't know. It seemed completely,
he can't run, Doug.
I know. But at the end of the day, like, it's okay to have a different opinion, but I'm like, why is this triggering me? Why am I getting so mad? And I think a lot of it has to do with the dismissiveness of a guy that was highly responsible for leading them to the heights that they did, who I fully believe can do it again.
I think it has something else to do with you.
Because, well, hold on. Because here's the thing. With a better defense, they win that game.
Mm-hmm.
Without 2 drop passes, I bet they win that game.
And a fumble.
Yep. What else do you think it has to do with?
With you, I think it's because of where you prioritize different attributes of a quarterback.
Well, that's true.
And because you have being mobile so far down the list, and people have it so much higher.
Yeah, mobility's down the list for me, and mobility's up. The people, my guess is if you are not a Goff fan, it has a lot to do with how important you think mobility is.
And I think that's the number one thing that triggers, because it goes in direct opposition to what your beliefs are when ranking those abilities.
Yep. 248-539-9797. Ken, you okay back there?
Yeah, newsflash, people. Jared Goff is not perfect.
No.
He's not the best quarterback in the league. And you can still win games and maybe even the Super Bowl with him. Yeah, I'm getting a little triggered like Doug is, Gator, unfortunately, because I see all the feedback coming in. I only send you guys stuff that helps, forward the conversation for the most part, back and forth. But a lot of the tenor of the text seem to be, at this point, and this is just text, that anyone can do what Jared Goff did with the Lions last year, which is so not true because it's never been done before.
Right.
Literally, the guy you had before him, Matthew Stafford, couldn't do it here. Okay? You finally got a guy who won 2 playoff games, was 30 minutes away from the Super Bowl, and you think anyone can do it? This is after 30 years of not hosting a playoff game? Winning a playoff game?
You know how many quarterbacks threw for more yards than Jared Goff last year?
Handful?
1. Tua Tagovailoa.
Does that include the playoffs?
No, this is just the
yards
regular
per game?
season.
Okay.
Regular season.
I mean,
you know how many quarterbacks threw for more touchdowns than Jared Goff did last year?
1.
3,
okay.
Actually. Prescott, Love, and Purdy. You know how many quarterbacks had a higher quarterback rating than Jared Goff did last year?
No.
There were like 7. I mean, he had a fantastic year. Not anybody can step into that situation, throw for 4,500 yards and 30 touchdown passes with a quarterback rating around 98 and lead his team to not 1 but 2 playoff wins.
Well, that's the main thing, Gator. The stats, fine. Matthew Stafford had a ton of stats here. He even got the nickname, right? It's about the wins. Jared Goff led this team to meaningful games, meaningful wins. It's not just numbers. And yes, the numbers back up that he is a good quarterback. But I guess my point is the complete disrespect of a guy who did something here that no one's ever done before. It blows my mind. If you're unsure about extending him for $50 million, I get it, man. And if you're curious about Hendon Hooker, I get that too. But to disregard what Jared Goff did, that's where I have a problem.
And the guy said that, when the pressure got up, Jared Goff threw nervous. And I'm thinking back to, remember the last play of the game touchdown he had to beat Minnesota 2 years ago, the 4th down conversion that they had to close out Green Bay last year, the big throws he made on that Charger drive to beat them. There's
threading the needle constantly to get it to Josh Reynolds or St. Brown or wherever. I mean, it's misdirected.
There's ample examples of him making plays in crunch time. Now, and the fact that we came out of the San Francisco game and I don't think we took one call saying Goff blew it. Like it was defense or Campbell or other things that let him down. Now we're getting 2-3 weeks later, month later, and people want to move on. I don't know. I shouldn't let it trigger me, but 248-539-9797. Ivory is next. What's up, Ivory?
Hey, good morning to you guys.
Hey, Ivory.
Hey, so my thing on Goff and the Hendon Hooker situation is that when they drafted Hendon Hooker, I think they drafted Hendon Hooker, I don't know the right term, with the understanding, et cetera, of a couple things. At the time, I think one was that they were unsure because, season had just started. Okay, let's see what Goff does this year, blah, blah, blah. 1-2 playoff games. He had a fabulous year. And I think now at this point, I assume they believe that he's their guy. Also, I think they drafted Hendon Hooker because I think they had a first-round grade on him. I think they knew because of the injury, like, okay, let's wait and see if he falls. They draft him. And I think they drafted him, for lack of a more expansive term, for his future value, knowing that if Goff is their guy, that if they train him up right, they keep him healthy, that someone's going to want his services. Being an older quarterback, a first-round value, even though he hasn't played, I don't know what value. He's not going to have bad value, I tell you that much, that they can flip him and for future value. So I think now they know Goff, I assume, is their guy. Now, $50 million, I would love to extend Goff because I think he can process defenses fast and you can build around him. You change quarterbacks at this point, that's a ballsy move. But I think they drafted him for future value as well, not just because they didn't know if Goff wanted to be their guy or not.
So here's the deal, and some people think they drafted Hendon Hooker because they see him as a long-term replacement for Jared Goff, and they may. Last year, do you know how many quarterbacks played in all 17 games?
I don't know, half of them.
10.
I was going to say 15, but 10.
10 played in all 17 games. If you're trying to compete and win, you need two quarterbacks. Like backup quarterback, to me, is almost like the 12th starter. You're going to likely need a backup at some point. The Lions were very fortunate. They got through the entire 17 regular season games and 3 postseason games with Jared Goff in one piece. And maybe that's sustainable because their offensive line is going to limit the number of hits. And maybe it's kind of sustainable because he's not a running quarterback, so he's not going to take off downfield and take hits. But if people think they drafted Hendon Hooker because they drafted him to replace Jared Goff, I think they drafted him because any smart team has 2 talented quarterbacks that can win games for you, and they were investing in him being that. And if he's better than Jared Goff, bravo. Right? I mean, if they can fit Jared Goff and Hendon Hooker under the salary cap, and it turns out Hendon Hooker's actually better, and Jared Goff unfortunately becomes a $50 million backup, I don't actually care if it's Goff or Hooker. If Hooker's better than Jared Goff, meritocracy, go for it, man.
Yeah, I think what Ivory had to see, he brought some good points. I do think that the Lions probably had a pretty high grade on Hooker.
I think that's true.
I think they knew, like every other team knew, that it was going to be a draft and stash kind of guy for a year because of the injury, coming back from it. And, there's a high reward for this. And they put in a 3rd-round draft pick to it. They didn't put a 1st or a 2nd-round pick into it. They put into that the resource was a 3rd-round pick. I think they had to move up to get it. So maybe there was another draft pick associated with it too. But it's, at the very least, I think what they saw was we need to get someone that's going to be a better option than Brian Blau or Tim Boyle.
Mm-hmm.
Teddy Bridgewater was a 1-year gap quarterback. That's what Teddy Bridgewater was here for. He took a couple of knees in the season this year. Didn't throw a single pass. Doesn't show up on a stat sheet. I think he took 3 knees. That's all he did, and he's retired. He's done playing football. So drafting Hooker is they need at the very least to get a capable backup to the guy, and the guy is Jared Goff. If it works out in the future that they feel like, wait a minute, we really have something here, then they're going to have a decision to make. And it's mentioned before, like, I think a week ago about this. The Patriots had a decision with Jimmy Garoppolo when they had Tom Brady, and not that Jared Goff is Tom Brady, but just from a veteran standpoint and getting a lot out of your quarterback, at some point you've got to make up your mind what you're going to do. And the Patriots like, well, we're going to let Garoppolo go because we got this guy.
Did you call him Brian Blau?
Did I?
Oh.
I went to high school with Brian Blau.
How dare you
David Blau.
disrespect David Blau?
That's how respected Blau was here. Gator's like, yeah, whatever. Jared Blau.
Sorry. Well, if I knew anyone was going to catch me sliding a Purdue man, it was going to be Doug.
What?
So
Exactly. Don't
Carson
mess with
Anderson, open lines, 248-539-9797. Red Wing Talk to open the show. If you want to continue with it, feel free. Are they going to justify an aggressive trade deadline move from the GM 2 weeks from, we're 2 weeks out from the trade deadline? It's Carson Anderson, 97.1, The Ticket.
Look, there's lots of sports bars out there, but the best sports bar out there is 24 Seconds Bar and Grill in Berkeley. It's the best place for food, atmosphere, specials, and they've got the best wings in town. New happy hour specials and daily specials. If you want to check them out, go to 24secondsbar.com and find out what they've got going there. For all college basketball games, you get $4 drafts of Miller Lite and Coors Light. For all Detroit hockey and basketball games, you get $4 bottles of Blue and Blue Light, and the specials are all day, every day. Plus, 24 is open for lunch on Thursdays and Fridays. And on Thursday night, trivia is back. It's a good time to play trivia up at 24 Seconds. And you can follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the great contests that they have. And if you've got a party or any event that you want catered, let 24 Seconds do all the work. Just enjoy your guests. Every seat's a great seat at 24 Seconds Bar and Grill in Berkeley. The service is great. Food's fantastic. Check out the specials and happenings at 24secondsbar.com and grab a taste of the action all for yourself. It's my favorite place to go. 24 Seconds Bar and Grill on 12 Mile, right in downtown Berkeley.
All right, so I admitted to open the show, I'm driving home yesterday thinking about why did that guy trigger me so much? Why was I screaming about somebody who didn't want to extend Jared Goff because of Hendon Hooker? Seemed like a bit of an overreaction. And I thought about it, and I thought maybe I'm doing exactly what Dan Campbell warns we shouldn't do. This was Dan Campbell right after the season, and here's what he had to say about taking that next step as an organization. So that's it right there. There's two parts of that last half of the soundbite. The more attached you get, the more success you have, the more attached you get. Guilty. And you got to make sure you don't get blinded. Could I be being blinded? I'm not sure if I am, because then he said you got to make sure that the player's producing for you. Well, Goff produced for them. Is it a repeatable? Is the formula they have repeatable? I absolutely believe it because of the offensive line. Their skill position players, look, they have probably now we can say an elite pass catching tight end and elite pass catching receiver in Amon-Ra and Laporta. The emergence of Jameson Williams could make Goff even better, and the running game will likely be intact with the same cats back. So I do think it's repeatable. I don't think I'm being blinded, but I think what triggers me is unprecedented heights, and people are like, yeah, let's scrap that guy and go for what's behind door number 2. And that is more emotion based, and I shouldn't let it trigger me.
The potential of two basically rookies last year and moving forward when you look at Jameson Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs and what they can do. Look, we're already amazed at what Laporte is doing.
Yeah.
But the receiver and the running back, that they can take bigger steps the next year, absolutely. That's huge. And the other thing that's huge for this team moving forward, at least moving forward for next year, Ben Johnson's back.
Yep.
So you don't have to ask yourself the question, who's going to take over, who's going to do this? It's Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson working with Jared Goff, they're very comfortable, and I don't see any reason why it would regress. I think there are reasons you think it could get better, but I'm not sure how much better. I mean, Goff's not going to get any more mobile. That's not going to happen. The offensive line, I don't think the offensive line's going to get any better. So these are things to keep an eye on, but very comfortable with what they have.
Terry's in Detroit and next here on 97.1. Hello, Terry. Terry, are you there?
You.
Terry?
Not saying anything. You, that guy.
No good. 248-539-9797. Kurt, you're next. What's up, Kurt?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Good show.
Thank you.
Hey, I got to, I'm like you, Doug. I'm tired of all the bad mouthing of Goff and everybody thinking, everybody's ready to give this Hendon Hooker the key to the city. And it's a joke. I don't even want this guy as my backup coming into this year because all that's going to do is move us backwards in case Goff gets hurt.
All right, not everybody is saying it. There have been a couple of people. There's a couple of people that have said it, and I'm intrigued by the potential of Hendon Hooker based off of what I saw in college.
Because he's got a big arm. And how many big arms have we seen come to the NFL that have had nothing?
Because he's got a big arm, it was an accurate arm, and because he was able to move, and because he was on pace to win the Heisman Trophy as the best player in college football when he was a senior.
I understand. I know. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not ready to. I'm not, like I said, I'm not ready to have this guy as a backup this year because I want somebody in there in case Goff gets hurt that knows the system. That I'm not even worried about a mobility quarterback. I don't know. I'm like Doug.
Who's going to know this? Who's going to know the system better than Hendon Hooker?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that Hendon Hooker, being around it and in it, has learned the system. And I don't want to see him because
I hope we don't see him.
Yeah, that means that Goff got hurt, but. The one thing you're right about is you can list all kinds of big arm quarterbacks and guys that, were higher draft picks or considered better quarterback prospects, and they turn out to be, Daniel Jones or Sam Darnold, or just like these highly rated guys that are just as easily, like, there's no telling what direction it's going to go with Hendon Hooker. But anytime you have a young quarterback, it's intriguing. It's exciting. It's fun to kind of watch. And I understand the allure of that. But half the young quarterbacks are just a guy, or, they're bad.
You're mentioning guys too, Doug, that have these, these high grades that people thought were going to be good in the league and didn't turn out well because it's that hard to predict and project.
And it's hard to do.
So that's why I don't understand this. When you actually have a guy who's proven it here, literally this past season, and people are still not sure, or they want the door number 2, I find it intriguing as well. But I definitely believe Brad Holmes and what he says when it's a lot easier to get worse at quarterback than it is to get better. It's really hard to play quarterback in this league, let alone play well.
Let's go to Sean, who's next on 97.1 The Ticket. Hi, Sean.
Good morning, guys. See, I'm an extend Goff guy. I want Goff extended. But That being said, I don't think this is your typical door number 2 or backup quarterback. Everybody wants a backup situation. We're sitting around praising Brad Holmes for his elite ability to identify talent, and this guy decided to go up and take Hendon Hooker. So it adds to the intrigue. What did they see that made them do that? And I think that's where a lot of it comes from. All of his draft picks he's nailing them. So what is this that Hendon Hooker's got?
So you're right, and that's a great point. I keep going back to, I think you need 2 quarterbacks. If you're going to compete at a high level, you need 2 quarterbacks. 10 quarterbacks played all 17 games last year. And so you should invest in a talented second quarterback.
Aren't we getting to that point where I think everybody around the league is seeing that? And I think you're going to see more people try to carry a very talented backup quarterback. I think the days of just having Sudfeld are over. I think because, like you said, 10 teams. Just think what Minnesota could have been if Kirk Cousins stayed healthy. Would they have battled harder for the division?
Well, they might have been able to finish second.
They were 500 with him.
Yeah, but if you look at who they beat, and it was they did beat some good teams. But yes, they would have been better with him, of course.
Speaking of triggering, hang on.
Yeah, calling 3-2-1 once a week. No, I mean it's like a 12th starter to me. It might be the most important position that championship caliber teams are trying to solidify. I mean, that's the one thing that scares me to death is actually life without Goff. Like that, the marriage between Ben Johnson, this head coach, this offensive line, this quarterback, and by the way, this team. Like, you see those locker room videos. He's a counted on and believed in leader on this team.
Yeah.
248-539-9797. All right, Gator, the latest in Major League Baseball's uniform disaster. Have you heard the latest?
Yep.
It's
comical.
It is comical. We'll get to that at 11:31. Plus your phone calls and feedback. 97.1 The Ticket. Doug Harsh, Scott Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. Story from The Athletic updating the problems that Major League Baseball is having with the new uniforms. Fanatics, Nike, and took over the deal and a joint venture, and the uniforms do look cheap. They really do. Nike released a statement saying we work closely with MLB players' teams in the league to create the most advanced uniforms in the history of MLB, which are lighter and more flexible. That they may be, but they are looking quite janky, quite overseas-ish, off-market. Got it from
cheap,
a non-authorized supplier.
These are called custom, Doug.
Yep.
They like to be referred to as custom from the people that make them.
But here's where it gets comical. The pants, by the way, have a see-through problem. Players tuck their jerseys in, and you can see the jerseys, like there's the jersey tops down the pant legs tucked in.
And more, Doug.
Yeah, I know. I'm not going there. But the lead in the Athletic story said among the numerous issues surrounding the rollout of Nike and MLB's new uniforms in spring is a pants shortage. Some teams are reusing pants from previous season made by Nike or Major League Baseball's previous uniform supplier, Majestic, because they don't have enough new Nike pants for all the players and uniform personnel. The Reds have told players to wear their old pants for the rest of spring training. There's a pants shortage.
I mean, come on. Is this really difficult?
How did it get this far is my question.
I don't know how it got this far.
Did they not put this on anybody before they made, thousands of these?
Aren't those stickers for quality control inspected by number 22?
Do you remember, we hear that the Lions have, lobbied the league for a uniform change, and it might happen in 2028 or whatever, and you go, why is it taking so long? This is why it takes so long, is to make sure that you don't have see-through pants or not enough pants.
Was there a problem with the previous jerseys to begin with? I mean, did they have to go with a big-time switch?
I mean, no, but you know how this is. It's contracted and bid on, and Fanatics won out, and they wanted to make them more, lighter, but it's come with all kinds of problems. So now there's a pants shortage. Not enough pants.
No, and apparently you can see their dingling if they're wearing the pants.
Yep. 248-539-9797. All right, let's get back to your phone calls. We go to Herb. You're next on 97.1. Hi, Herb.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How you doing?
Doing good.
On this Jared Goff thing, number one, I'm not a Lions fan, and I'm not a big Jared Goff fan. But let me start with this. It's easier to get worse at quarterback than to get better. I don't understand the clamoring for Hendon Hooker myself. This man has taken the Lions to heights they've never seen in decades, and yet still people seem like they want to dismiss that and lowballing. Let me get to this right quick. If I'm Jared Goff and I'm sitting around thinking about the landscape of the league and how these guys are getting paid, Deshaun Watson, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, for God's sakes, and on, I'm not gonna let the Lions lowball me. I think Kang mentioned it yesterday. He put the number 48 million or something like that in that area.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I would start. That, and not a penny less. And
well, everybody's going to have. I mean, Herb, that's what you would take, and that's fine. We have no idea what Goff's camp is going to ask for. We don't know what this threshold is. We don't know, if he's willing to take less so they can bring other players in and keep this thing rolling, or what. We have no idea.
You guys have said that when teams want to restructure contracts, they'll find the money from somewhere.
Yep.
So when people talk about, Penei Sewell and Amon-Ra getting extended, which they deserve it, they'll find the money.
I tend to agree with you. That's why I'm not really concerned about the money and what they're going to sign him for, because I think they will be able to find it. And you know what? The more players you have that are on these bigger contracts, the more opportunities you have to restructure, and the more you can play with funny money. At some point, you're going to have to pay the piper.
Yeah, at some point you do. So here's the deal, though, and let me just say to the people that don't want to pay Jared Goff because it handcuffs them and really limits their flexibility under the cap. The same can be said about Penei Sewell. You don't bring back Penei Sewell. He won't cost as much as Jared Goff, obviously, but you could say, yeah, I didn't want to bring back Penei Sewell because he would cost too much. Didn't want to bring back Amon-Ra because he would cost too much. The formula that they are apparently going to try and execute, if they bring back Jared Goff, Amon-Ra, and Penei Sewell, is about competency in the draft. When you can draft well and you don't have to go to free agency and spend a ton of money on guys from the outside to get them to come here, and instead pay rookie contracts because you can draft well and keep drafting well, actually, that's the formula where you can keep your valued veterans and still be a good football team. So the bet, if you look at Goff and say that's too much money, say the same thing about Sewell, Amon-Ra, say the same thing about Aiden Hutchinson down the road. Like, you could start saying that about everybody. That do you want to, if there are guys that are bordering on, top 5, top 6, 7, 8 in the league, and you're winning with them, how about you bring them back and just basically count on continuing to draft well? We got 3 good drafts banked. Probably not random. Seems like a formula that can work. 248-539-9797.
It's an interesting point, like you bring up about the other players, Doug.
Yep.
Has anyone called and said, how come Amon-Ra and Penei Sewell don't take less money?
Right.
So they can keep Goff. Everyone's saying it the other way around, but no one's saying it to those guys. You think Goff's agent goes, dude, you tell those guys to take less money so they can keep their quarterback.
Right. Right. Who do we got next? Matt in St. Clair Shores. Hello, Matt.
Nice. Hey, boys, I was in and out yesterday. Did you not go over the national day that it was yesterday?
We did not. What was it yesterday?
It was National Margarita Day. That's like right up that Gators alley. And you're just leaving your man hanging like that.
Wow, I didn't even know.
We might have to circle back. You're right.
I had a cocktail after the Red Wings win last night. It was not tequila based. Wow. Had I known.
See, I'm just disappointed. But so I guess you kind of stole my thunder a minute ago, Doug. Daniel Jones makes $40 million a year. So if that bag of pulp in New York can make $40 million, we have to pay Jared Goff more than $40 million. They're talking about giving Baker Mayfield between 45 and 50 as well. Would you rather have Baker Mayfield? I know Gator wouldn't, but Daniel Jones is making 40. Baker Mayfield is going to be making 42 to 45. Just to pay Jared Goff 48 to 50 is literally in line and a bargain based on what else is going on in the quarterback market. So, next time someone calls and says, I don't want to extend him, that's going to cost too much, you ask him if you'd rather have Baker Mayfield or Daniel Jones. And I just think that pretty much is the exclamation point you need on anything.
The Daniel Jones part, that's just a mistake. That was a horrible decision to re-sign Daniel Jones because he's a horrible quarterback. Baker Mayfield had a really good year last year, and he's probably made himself some money in the short term for sure. Whether he's going to sign a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal to remain in Tampa, he's going to get paid. Will he get paid north of 40? We'll see. He might. I mean, that year was a great year he had last year. Led him to the playoffs.
Look, I'm not this all started because of a call yesterday, and then me driving home thinking I'm doing the Campbell thing. I'm absolutely falling in love with the guys that got them success. But Dan Campbell also said you got to make sure your guys are producing for you and you're winning because of them, and they're worth it. And at this point, I don't know why we wouldn't believe that Jared Goff's success, potential success, isn't repeatable. Is he a true pro? Seems to be. Is he old? No. Is he bring a lot of drama? No. Is he all in for the team? Yes. Does the offensive coordinator believe in him? Yes. Is the team that he needs around him in place to give him success? Yes. Why would we go back to square one with somebody else? Why would we go back to square one with somebody else? On top of that, though, what triggers me is sort of the it wasn't the dream season, but it was a pretty damn good season. And people already looking to move on from one of the guys most responsible for bringing the season. 248-539-9797, phone calls and feedback. Coming up in the noon hour, if you missed a couple of referee calls from last night, I've got to play them for you. And straight ahead, there's some new rules in Major League Baseball this coming season. It hasn't gotten a lot of talk. At least it hasn't gotten a lot of talk in our time slot. I would like to discuss it because something that was borderline highly controversial is, I would assume would get more controversial with the change that they are making. We'll get to that today at 11:50 here on Karsch and Anderson. 248-539-9797. The phone number. Open the show with Red Wing Talk. Wings fans, what a win last night. Kind of a faith reinstilling win in this team to beat one of the better teams in the West and to do it the way they did. I mean, this was two high-scoring teams. And they had to slug it out 2-1 overtime game that the Wings were able to win, put themselves in a good place. Are they justifying an aggressive Steve Yzerman trade deadline move? One thing we didn't talk about when we brought this up a couple days ago was this team getting white hot before the trade deadline. Could they do that? Love to get your calls and thoughts on that as well here on Karsch and Anderson. Just a reminder, you can stream the show with the Odyssey app. Download it for your mobile device today, AUDACY. That way you can listen to this show and this station anywhere in the United States and Canada. Also, stream to our website, 971theticket.com, where that story the Birchie kid wrote about the Red Wings last night and this new team that appears to be ready to win. Some of the reasons why. Check it out at 971theticket.com. Also stream our station. Streaming a video with Twitch. Love the Twitch crowd. Go to twitch.tv, search up 971theticket, and participate in the streaming chat. Also on YouTube, youtube.com. Search up 971theticket. It's Karsch and Anderson. Get to these Major League Baseball rule changes, more of your feedback. Karsch and Anderson, 97.1. Hey, it's a Friday. Carson Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. Open lines, 248-539-9797. Big Red Wing win last night. Pistons, was kind of hoping for some fight coming out of the All-Star game. The disrespect of Jaden Ivey. The over did not hit. I suffered.
You lost $1?
Yeah, it might have gone big.
3?
5.
5? Oh, no.
Yep.
That's going to cut in.
Are you going to financially recover from this? Or?
Well, that's why. I bet the way I bet is there will never have to be a recovery.
Well, just make a bigger bet on the next one. That's how you get it back.
That's a smart thing to do, yes.
That works. Double it up.
Go find yourself a long shot and just get it all back
there.
there.
It's like 50-1. Yep. Put 10 on it.
Yeah.
On Twitch, Wolfmother 2, Doug, for gambling problems, call. No, if anybody knows the number, it's me, but I know I'm not. Stay within your means. Let's go to Bob and Shelby on 97.1 The Ticket. Hey, Bob.
Hey, Doug. So I was listening to you yesterday.
Yep.
With regard to Larkin.
Yep.
And the fact that he didn't get, I forget the exact details, but you were talking about how he didn't get even one vote for being within the top 10 at his position.
Yep.
And I went to the hockey game last night. We had seats in the lower bowl, and I was watching Larkin. He was all over the ice, and obviously he had a key goal and a key assist, but it was more than that. I mean, he was all over, and obviously the Avalanche were giving him a lot of attention. So I was just sitting there at the hockey game last night thinking to myself, how can these people not give him credit, not include him in the top 10?
Because there's a lot of talented centers in the league.
Bob, I hear you, and it's funny because, look, I didn't even believe that he belonged in the top 10, but what just got me is I've seen enough of these types of things where if you talk to enough people, you'll see a lot of guys, a lot of different names show up on lists, and he didn't have anybody vote for him. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm a little surprised by that. It's not the end of the world. But nobody, none of their 20 insiders from inside the league thought Larkin was a top 10 center. Do I think he is?
I mean,
no, but I'll tell you what.
I'm not saying.
The line Derek Lalonde said after the game, we see him that way. And, that's probably more important than anything.
I'm not saying he won the game single-handedly, but without him on the ice, Wings don't win that game. I'm sorry. No way.
He was pretty.
He's the best player on this team.
Pretty effing huge last night.
He's good.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, they're doing it different. Like Patrick Kane scores last night, 10th goal of the season. 11 of the 12 forwards they suited up last night have double-digit goals. This is a deep team that is closer to the type of team where you can truly say they can roll 4 lines. Now, do they have any elite players? Probably not.
No.
Probably not. I mean, Seider got votes for the best defenseman, but he was in the honorable mentions group. He wasn't in the top 10. And they're riding the wave of Alex Lyon right now.
They've got a few, maybe a few second-tier guys. If you look at Larkin, DeBrincat, Patrick Kane, and Mo Seider. Those are probably second-tier guys. And it's good to have a bunch of them. They got 4 of them. And it'd be nice if other guys continue to play where the trajectory where they're at, they'll be there. Lucas Raymond is playing kind of at that level right now. But he's got to do it for the full season. They can they? Your question earlier is, can they win? I guess we did this kind of yesterday. Can they win a Stanley Cup without having a top 10 guy? I don't think that they can, but it doesn't mean that they can't be competitive and it can't surprise some things, and it's still a work in progress. I mean, this team hasn't made the playoffs yet. They haven't made the playoffs in how many years?
7.
I'm not expecting them to step up this year when they make the playoffs and win the Stanley Cup. That's not the progression. I mean, we go back and watch the teams that they had in the 80s that got to the conference finals. The teams in the 90s that got to the Stanley Cup finals but didn't win. The team in the 90s that got to the Stanley Cup finals and finally won. And you look at those rosters, it's vastly different. Now, the game's also vastly different now than what it was 25 years ago.
Well, the least surprising sport when there is a 8 seed or a wild card team that makes a run is the NHL. Now, that doesn't mean the formula is sneak into the playoffs, then you're all set. But you have Boston bounced. Weren't both 1 seeds bounced in the first round last year? Boston lost and Colorado lost. Were they both the 1 seeds? They were, weren't they? So, I mean, the way they do it now is you have the Division 1 seeds. But yeah, so it's I mean, there is an element of just get in, but I do love what Patrick Kane said last night, who's been around. We can win a 7-game series against anybody. 248-539-9797.
They played like it last night. They got great goaltending. There's clearly
great special teams.
Yeah. The Avalanche are a more talented team than the Red Wings, but the Red Wings showed that it's not everything. A lot of timing goes into it. When you take penalties, are you able to kill? And the Red Wings penalty kill has been spectacular lately. And their power play creates a lot of chances. It's not as efficient as maybe you'd expect it to be, but it's still decent. And watching that overtime kind of unfold last night, the play Dylan Larkin makes is a great play. Draws 2 players to his attention, and then he just kind of slides his backhand pass behind his back, and there's Patrick Kane with a chance to tee it up.
There's something about the beauty of an incredible hockey goal that it's like watching a left-handed swing. Like there's certain things in sports, and that was an example of it. Kind of a blind pass, putting the ball on a tee for Kane. And it was a thing of beauty. It was a thing of beauty. All right, I mentioned we get to this, Gator. Last year, there was a lot of people that didn't think they would like Major League Baseball's pitch clock, the pitch timer. I was going through Sports Illustrated, and they were discussing that, yes, the new rules haven't got nearly as much attention, but the pitch clock with runners on base has been reduced to 18 seconds, down from 20. They're making it even a shorter time. But it's under the belief that it's, quote, not that big a deal considering pitches started their delivery last year with an average of 7.3 seconds left on the clock. And considering games picked up some dawdle time as the season progressed, it says. But so the pitch clock with runners on base, 20 seconds down to 18.
Okay.
Great.
As long as they can adjust to it and it's not crazy, it works. Okay. It showed last year that it worked. Changes were great. Trimmed down the game. It moved it along. That's what you just move it along.
Mm-hmm.
I hate seeing the pitchers up on the mound back a couple years ago. They step off. The batters step out of the box, step back in, call for time, adjust the arm, and all. I mean, enough of that. It did catch one of the Tigers off guard yesterday in spring training practice. Casey Mize has not pitched with the pitch clock, and yesterday he's doing a live BP, and they've got a pitch clock, and he got buzzed for it, and he's like, "What's going on?" And like,
that's funny.
AJ Hinch is like, "You got to throw the ball, man. It's a pitch clock." And so kind of had a laugh about it, but it's an adjustment period for him, but not anybody else.
That's really funny. I hadn't thought about that, but hey, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter now, so you may as well learn from it. And everybody had to adjust to it, but once they did, if you would have told me that the average time on the pitch clock was 7.3 seconds when pitchers started their windup with runners on base, I mean, it sounds like they could have cut 5 seconds off the pitch clock.
Well, you don't have to do that much, but yes.
You don't have to. But I mean, the one thing about football is after every play, yeah, there's longer than 20 seconds, but the way the game is played, there's so much to talk about between plays. There's not so much to talk about between pitches. When the ball's put in play, it's great for fans to digest what they just saw and talk about it. But when it's ball one outside, there's not a whole ton to say before pitch number 2,
I wonder if there's data that will show that because you're on a pitch clock and because pitchers are throwing the ball a lot quicker now, is there data that would support that injuries are cut because of that? Because, hey, they don't have to. They're already in a groove. They're ready to go, and the right arm slot and all this. Their mechanics aren't getting janky on them.
Interesting. I've not seen that, but any data that says that it is healthier for the players, I think we'd all be in favor of, especially the pitchers, man. Like it was cool the other day to see Skubal and who've gotten into triple digits. But then again, part of me is going, wait a sec. Does this increase injury probability? The fact that he's hitting triple digits. Maybe it has nothing to do with anything. But that stuff always makes me worry. I just think about Zamaia, right? Everybody loves Zamaia, and Zamaia was so much fun. And wow, is that ever, electric? And he's top at 100 all the time. Didn't last. Now, not everybody's built the same. There are guys that have durability.
Now, it's also, you think about that, that's a long time ago now.
I know.
And every roster has, it seems like they've got a handful of guys that can hit triple digits now. It's crazy.
It really is.
How much harder guys are throwing the ball now compared to 15 years ago.
True that. 248-539-9797. Okay. Coming up next hour, you missed some referee calls last night. It was funny. It was entertaining. But does it also raise your eyebrows a little bit? We will get to that today at 12:05 here on Carson Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. What a win for the Red Wings last night over the Colorado Avalanche in overtime. Dylan Larkin stepping up big time. A third period power play goal ties it. And then he puts the ball on the tee or the puck on a platter, however you want to put it. And Patrick Kane slams home the game winner in overtime. The Red Wings beat one of the best teams in the West, the Colorado Avalanche. Now they have their starting goalie out, but Eunice Anunin played pretty well for them. And the Red Wings got great goaltending themselves from Alex Lyon. 2-1 affair. The Wings get the 2 points, 6 points clear of in the playoff chase for now on wild card one. They're wild card one now after that win, and looking forward to them maybe doing what we didn't even really consider a couple days ago, and that is them getting white hot. Could they get white hot leading into the trade deadline and really justify a hyper aggressive move by Steve Yzerman? I don't expect them to get white hot and win every game between now and the trade deadline, but the next 4 games are all against teams that have fewer points than them. Now, it's pretty close. There's not much to choose between Detroit and St. Louis and Washington and the Islanders, but Detroit has the most points out of those teams. The Blackhawks mixed in there as well, but there's a chance here for the Red Wings to maybe make a statement. And I was hoping they were going to do it on that West Coast trip. And, we're always in these jobs, you're always trying to identify when your team is taking that next step. And one game doesn't mean it. It would have to be a stretch of games. But overall, since the All-Star game, what did they do? They beat Vancouver. They had the 2 bad games against Edmonton and Vancouver. Then they beat Calgary. They beat Seattle. They get some time off, come home and beat Edmonton.
Colorado,
last night. So they're doing some work here. So hopefully they can keep it up and we can see some postseason hockey down at LCA. Would that be the most coveted ticket in the history of LCA? Bigger than Madonna or something?
I would imagine it's probably a concert. Yeah. But as far as, Red Wings and Pistons, yeah. Looking for a playoff game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
248-539. Well, 97.
They had the attendance reported last night was 19,500. So now that football is kind of in the rearview mirror for a little bit here,
yep,
hockey's taking the forefront because the Red Wings are good, and Tigers are just beginning spring training where there's interest, but unless you're in Lakeland, nothing's happening here. So what's here locally? The Red Wings, and they play well at home. They have a good home record. They got a good win last night. They're in the thick of it right now for this playoff push. I think it's an exciting time to be a Red Wing fan.
Now, we could also have some March Madness excitement given that LCA is hosting a regional semifinal and final. Michigan State is likely to make the tournament. Michigan, another loss last night. They've been out of it for a while, which is awfully disappointing, and now they're just doing the death march to the end of the season. And the future of Juwan Howard appears to be up in the air. 248-539-9797. You heard in the update there what we were going to play, part of what we were going to play. There were 2 calls last night, one in the NHL and one in the NBA. The first one, Blues Islanders, penalty call, waved off by the goal got waved off, and a goal by the Blues got waved off in St. Louis. It went to review, and the official, Garrett Rank, reviewed the play and made the call.
You're not going to like it.
Nope. I laugh.
Because it's funny.
It is. Then there was this NBA game, Suns-Mavs. Grayson Allen fouls Luka Doncic. And it gets challenged. The ref is Kevin Scott. And you're going to hear Reggie Miller on the broadcast, and Kevin Scott comes in and explains what he saw. The official's talking to the microphone now. Here's how this went down. All right.
It's just too much, all this.
So I laughed too. And then Kang said, in this day and age, though, don't we want our refs, when people get worried about conspiracy stuff, to be robots and not show any personality? Because when they show personality, you're not going to like it. Maybe people, think, oh, they're more human. And then when you think they're human and not robotic, that you get suspicious. I don't, but I think other people do.
I love it. I love it because it is showing a human element. It's showing a little bit of sympathy or empathy and saying, look, the call is so obvious we had to make it. It's not a goal.
Yeah.
Right? Or it was high sticking or whatever the reason the goal didn't count. And when you're explaining it like that, it I think helps to soothe the audience. The same thing with the basketball referee's explanation. It's just too much. Guys, we couldn't ignore it. It was too much.
Yep.
And when you get the full explanation, I think fans would rather have the full explanation than AI-driven robotic voice. Here's Siri telling you that it is no goal. Yeah, I think you want more. I think it's why we like when we watch the other professional football leagues last spring, when they take you into the discussion between
you could hear
the referees and the guy up in a booth. I love that because you get to hear the interaction and, okay, here's the explanation of why they're coming to this determination, because there's too many times where they don't, and you're like, how could you possibly have seen it that way? How do this? It's almost like an accountability thing. I like it.
I do too. I just think knowing how conspiracy theorists work, an official almost taking glee that you're not going to like it part. It was almost like he was ready to stick it to the fans.
Yeah, that was a little different than the NBA one. I think overall, entertainment value, yeah. We all love it. I mean, if the refs talk more, we're just going to be more entertained. It's one thing to explain a call. It's another to, hey, you're not going to like this call. That's more like an opinion based than an actual explanation of what happened.
Well, he knows his audience.
Well, my point is, if you're betting on the Blues or Islanders which way, and you're like, dude, this guy, is he mocking me? I just lost $13, right, Doug?
Yes.
So, I mean, I get it, Doug or Gator. Like, it is definitely entertaining. And we all want to be, hey, why did you make this call? We want to hear the explanation. I think when you give the refs this freedom, though, we're going to get to an area where some point where people are going to, conspiracy theories are going to come up.
Yeah, I don't know about conspiracy theories, but I have a totally different opinion when it comes to the umpires in baseball. Shut up and do your job.
Yeah, see, that's funny because you don't like them.
No, I don't. And because they have the thinnest skin around. And because their job can be done by somebody else, by something else, not somebody, something else. Mm-hmm. When it comes to balls and strikes, I don't know why we haven't gotten to this point yet. Now that we have technology, I mean, they do it in the minors to an extent. Let's go ahead and do this in the majors because there are guys out there like Angel Hernandez that are just so horrendous at their job, and yet they're still doing it. Why? How is it possible you can still have a job when you are wrong this often? And I don't know. It feels like baseball is it's just a totally different animal.
I'll tell you who I don't think would put up with this, who wouldn't allow for this. Roger Goodell. I don't think the NFL wants their officials doing it. I think Roger Goodell wants them all to be robots. In fact, the one looks like a robot. Is it Clay Martin? There's one, I think that's his name. They have one official who's got the most chiseled chin you've ever seen and the super broad shoulders. And I'm like, that guy looks like a robot. I think that's the perfect NFL official. They want no emotion. Roger Goodell, I think, would shut this down if it happened in his league. The entertainment value, I agree. And I don't really buy into a lot of conspiracy theories. And we were talking a few weeks ago remember that topic came up, is anything affected by gambling and spreads and all that? And I said, I just don't. It never crosses my mind. It never does. But doing this long enough and talking to enough fans, I know it crosses people's minds that it might lead to conspiracy theories, but Goodell would not put up with this.
Do you guys think the leagues would want fans to know who the referees are and what their names are?
No.
This would open that up 100%.
I'd never heard the name Garrett Rank before this. And now I know. Because as soon as we heard the call, Gator and I both went, McCauley. Macaulay.
Wes Macaulay, or-
Is that because Wes Macaulay is the guy that goes 2 minutes for roughing and like pretends he's punching a guy and
We have our good goal.
yeah, he really over dramatizes his calls, and it's entertaining as hell. But no, I would bet that every commissioner in the league would not want anyone to know any of the names of any other Kaharskis.
No, you don't want that. You don't want that. What you want is competency first and foremost.
Yep.
And if you're competent and very competent at what you do, then maybe you can go ahead and stray a little bit and show some personality, and people would embrace it.
248-539-9797. Phone calls, feedback. Carson Anderson. Coming up at 12:35, we're going to open up the Big Old Tub of Pretzels for the question of the day. We'll get to more of your phone calls and feedback on this. Additionally, on another Lions question we'll bring up, we'll talk about the Pistons and Pacers last night, which was not – had the multiple TVs going last night, and the Red Wings stole the attention because the Pistons fell behind by like 80 right away. It's Carson Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. Hey, you're looking for that perfect fish dish for Lent? Look no further than Twin Peaks. Every Friday during Lent, Twin Peaks is offering up their hand-breaded and fried-to-order fish and chips with a 22-ounce Miller or Coors Light draft. And that's not all. They've just added lobster to the menu. The awesome chefs there at Twin Peaks have created a new lobster roll BLT, lobster mac and cheese, and the new twist on your favorite trout. Try it today or swing by Saturday night. Enjoy it for UFC Fight Night. Detroit back in action Saturday as well against St. Louis. So they look to get back into the playoffs for the first time in 7 years. Enjoy all the hit snipes and slashes on their wall-to-wall TVs. And, of course, there's the beautiful Twin Peaks girls serving up your favorite 29-degree drafts and scratch-made food. Come see why pro hockey hits hard at Twin Peaks today. To find a location nearest you, go to twinpeaksrestaurant.com. That's twinpeaksrestaurant.com. Twin Peaks eats, drinks, and scenic views. All right, so we'll get to some Piston stuff here in a second. Big old tub of pretzels today at 12:35. Kang just confessed something. Our producer behind the glass does a great job. You did something last night. When's the last time you did this?
Oh my God, I can't even remember. I literally can't remember. It must have been 10 plus years. I don't know if it was really confession, Doug, by the way.
Yeah, you're right.
I revealed something, maybe.
He revealed something. Is probably a better way to put it. Last night, for the first time in over a decade, you found yourself where?
At a varsity high school basketball game.
Gator, when's the last time you went to a high school basketball game?
I can't remember. I'm trying to think of one of my friend's kids, but no, because
I've been to 10 since the new year. Like when your kids are in high school and playing, you go to a lot of high school games. And I wonder,
the last time was even in a high school gym.
It's funny because there's a lot of, at first, when you first, like I walk into some gyms that I haven't been in 30 years. And you walk into those gyms and like, you have weird emotions come back to you. Like, I remember this place.
Just walking down the hallway, right? Seeing the lockers, Doug. I mean, because you have kids that have gone through it and going through it right now.
Yep.
Man, I hadn't been in one, Gator. It is weird. You walk back into a high school, there are weird memories, emotions. It wasn't even my high school.
Here's what's crazy is I will look at pictures, okay? You tell me there's two things about when I walk into high schools. They have pictures on the walls of great athletes. Anybody that came from the era that preceded you, okay? So whatever year you graduated from high school, and you see a picture from somebody from the era that preceded you, even though that person is a good 30 years younger than you are right now, I will look at that picture and go, man, that guy looks old.
Yeah.
Even though in the time he was 17 years old.
That 17-year-old looks like he's 31.
You show me a picture of a 17-year-old in the 1970s, and I'll be like, wow, that guy's old.
Yeah.
Well, that's why they were all better athletes. They were all older.
They were older. That might be it. So that's one thing. And every single gym, you get to these games, you get there early, you kind of walk around, you look at things, and my kid was playing down in Monroe, and I walked into Monroe's. I looked at their wall of fame, and they got like 11 billion pictures on the wall. And I'm looking at these kids, and I'm like, God, that guy looks old. That guy looks old. That guy looks old. And I'm like, they're 17 and 18 years old. But if they came before before 87 or whatever, I'm like, they look older than me.
The last time I can remember being in a high school, inside a high school, was probably close to 10 years ago.
Okay. All right, so Kang, you walked into this. First of all, how did this happen?
Doing?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, now I want to explain because people are like, this dude just walked into high school basketball.
Creeper.
So it's like 6:30 last night, and I get a call from my friend Bobby. I'm like, BG, what up? Hey, do you want to go to a high school basketball game? I'm like, what? Games, I'm like, don't they start at 7:30? He goes, yeah, I think it's 7 o'clock. He explains to me, I forgot, he coaches a kid in the summertime who's a varsity basketball player for Utica. And he told him he would go see him play or whatever. So he had bought tickets in advance for last night's game. He totally forgot about it. He got home from work. Remember, he bought 2 tickets. He knows I live right by the high school. And he knows I'm a basketball fan, of course, and all that. So he says, hey, I'm heading up there. I can swoop you up real quick. Any interest? 30 minutes later, I'm in a high school basketball gym. I was like, all right, I'll go.
So did you notice, let me ask you this, were the tickets on an app?
Yes.
Oh, no.
There's almost no high school. Last night.
Gator, you're not getting in.
No,
buddy.
you're not. You're never going to a high school game again. Last night was the first time all season I went to watch my son play. It was the first gym that took cash.
That's crazy.
I know. So I've been to 15 games this year. First gym that took cash was last night.
When did this change, Doug?
It's been a slow roll over the last 4 or 5 years that every high school sporting event, just about all of them now, you have to get the GoFan app and you have to have an account. And once it's set up, it's easy. But Gator, you're never going, huh?
No, it's not that. It's just I think it's wrong that they wouldn't accept cash. I think but if you're in a bind, you don't have a phone, you don't have your phone with you, you left it in the car, whatever the case is, and not everybody does this. And cash is cash. Do you accept cash? Why would you not accept cash? I think you always have to accept cash, and yet it's not the case. I know it's not. It's not. They don't LCA. They don't do that.
They don't accept cash at the concession stands at high school games.
I know, and I think it's ridiculous because I have money.
Not all of them, I should say.
If you have money, your money should count for money because that's exactly what it is.
I think some still do both, but they're eventually just going to go cashless for sure. Yeah, my buddy had the tickets on his phone. I think I might have seen some other people paying Cash Gator, but yeah, he had his tickets on the app. I was like, wow, this is different. I haven't been to a high school basketball game or high school sports in forever.
So let me ask you if you do the same thing that I do, which is totally flawed, but I'll admit it. Did you find yourself saying, I could have made that play? I would have hit that shot.
I didn't say that, but I was critiquing maybe too harshly these kids. And then it went down to the coach, too. Like, what is he doing? You got to pull that guy from the game.
I sit there and I watch these games and I'm like, I'd just take that guy down. I'd post him up.
Doug, do you watch standing from like the corner or do you sit in the stands?
I tend to try to sit by myself.
Oh, just like find a spot in the bleachers and
yeah. I've gone through various stages of my viewing at youth sports, and I've come to realize that when your kid's playing, I'm rooting for the team, but I also don't want to seem like I'm too locked in on my own kid. I want all the kids to have success, but it gets I'm just better off kind of isolating myself, which is I'm probably thought of as rude, and that's not the intent. I just feel more comfortable watching.
You're very standoffish.
Well, you know me pretty well. Would you describe me that way?
Not at all.
Okay.
In fact, I encourage people to go up to Doug if they see him and say hello.
Go up to Doug. Especially when they're together, people.
Yeah.
When Gator and Doug are together, go up to Doug.
Yeah. In particular, go talk to Doug. I enjoy talking to people.
I will say that I just the tension of watching your own kid, it's almost embarrassing. So I guess I like isolating myself is what it comes down to.
Well, try watching other people's kids like I was.
Yeah, I think it's probably more.
Are you the only one that does that?
I don't think so.
Like when
in
you're
fact,
at games,
I know I'm not. I know there's a lot of people that isolate themselves, just sit by themselves. But no, I'm not. I'm definitely
because everybody's going through the same thing you're going through. So yep. I wonder why you.
I mean, there's typically when you walk into a high school gym, remember that there's typically, home fans, visiting fans, home students, visiting students. They have sections earmarked, and so you're all kind of in the same area. But I just kind of zone out. That I'm good with it. 248-539-9797. Any other observations, Kang?
No. You know what one was that no overzealous parents appreciated that.
That's a huge deal.
Yeah, I didn't want to.
That's major.
Yes, that was big.
Yeah.
Maybe they're all isolating themselves.
I don't know.
Maybe they're starting to treat each other with respect.
Well, here's the other thing. Because of our jobs, I almost never say anything. Never cheer, never clap. At our jobs, there's no cheering in the press box, right?
Right.
And you watch these games, and it just becomes the norm of how I watch games almost all the time. Even when my own frickin' kid is playing. I'm dead silent.
I caught myself. Well, I was watching when my niece was in high school and watched her play soccer, which is probably the last time I was at any kind of high school event.
Yep.
I caught myself getting upset with the referees. I'm like, come on. I'm like, oh, all right.
Back up. What are you doing? Gator checked himself.
It's funny because
hey.
I always go back. I remember once my daughter JV girls basketball game, and some parents were going off on the officiating. I said, okay, let's start with this. There's a shortage of officials. The girls varsity game's going on after this. They probably got the better officials. The boys are playing across town. There's a good chance that they got better officials. We are getting the lowest rung of officials. And the more we yell at them, the less likely they are to come back, and the less likely they're going to have officials for the next game. So let it go.
This is what I actually did notice, and I'm glad you brought up the officials, Doug.
Mm-hmm.
This game had 3 refs. When did high school basketball games get 3 refs?
Almost all the varsity games,
really?
as far as I remember.
Nice. Good
Yep.
for them, man.
Yep.
I think we're lucky to get like 1. You know what I mean? We got 1 we can play.
There have been to plenty games where there's been 1 umpire.
Yeah, that's
one ref.
That's rough.
And like that umpire's trying to make the safe out call down at second base when he's behind home plate. And you're standing there and you can clearly see he got it wrong, but I'm like, dude, what's my man gonna do? He's further away than I am. Yeah.
He's gonna get on the mic and go, "You're not gonna like this, but I'm taking a guess."
He looked like he was out,
right?
So
yeah. Ball beat him.
It was just too much.
The nuance of whether he tagged him or not. Okay. Big old tub of pretzels question of the day, 12:35. It's Carson Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. Doug Karsh, Scott Anderson, 97 won a ticket. By the way, Gator, if you ever are interested in going to a high school game, either A, I'll buy your ticket if one of my kids is playing, or B, I'll help you get the app, upload the app and set it up for you.
I think I can figure it out.
Okay. I do know you did go watch my oldest son play high school tennis, which was so freaking awesome because you stood out. I'm not going to say what school he was playing at, but I would describe it as one of the more hoity-toity schools in the Metro Detroit area.
Something like that.
Yeah. And it was a summer, and he showed up. Gator, you got there before me, and when I got there, you were there watching. And there's really nobody but the parents watching. But you were there. And I don't remember which metal band T-shirt you were wearing.
It was either Metallica or AC/DC. But you can't see anything because you're behind the fence.
I know, but I could see
like
it.
behind the baseline.
I knew immediately.
Yeah, but it was kind of funny to see all the other parents that are there and are all set up in their chairs and the coolers and watching this.
And Gators.
And I'm standing
You
right
have
below.
a jean jacket on too?
It was summer. I didn't need a jean jacket.
Oh, okay. I know it was breezy.
Army jacket.
It was so awesome. It was very cool that you went. I do appreciate it.
State champion.
Yep.
I'd watch your kid play, Doug, if you lived closer.
You know what? If they ever have a game out this direction, it's a bit of a hike.
Well, I would watch. You
would go to the game. Remember, I would isolate myself.
I told you if the boy plays somewhere out towards me, I'd be willing to go check it out.
Yeah, I do appreciate it. And in baseball, I think that's possible. But okay. So just a heads up, we use the Big O Tub of Pretzels to answer random questions. And we do get plenty from listeners. Others are debates here at the station, but they're sometimes sports related, sometimes non-sports related. The best questions we get are questions from the audience. So if you have any debates you're having with your friends or something you've always wondered about, text it over right now at 248-539-9797. Kang likes to collect the best ones and put them in this giant old plastic tub of pretzels that we probably finished eating the pretzels a decade ago, but the big tub stuck around and we just started putting questions in there. And every once in a while, we open it up. So here we go. Random questions from the audience.
Love them.
And debate points here.
I think last week's most popular question, guys, was the owl question.
So and for people who missed it, the question was, how many owls would you have to see in one day before you started to get worried?
This is a good question.
It was a great question.
Mine and Doug was 3. Gators was high at 5.
Gators like 5. Like he could see 4 owls in a day and not be concerned.
I like birds of prey. What do you want me to say?
Yeah. All right, here we go, guys. All right. If you get a bad haircut, do you still have to tip? Oof, that's a good question. This is a good question. All right, you sit in a chair, guys. You know, he or she cuts your hair. Doug, you might have to step off of this one.
I'm sitting this one out.
And then you look at it after they show you, Gator, and you're like, dude, this thing sucks. In your mind, you're like, no, this sucks. I have to wear a hat. Do you still have to tip?
Yeah. You don't have to tip how you normally would. I mean, I don't know how people tip. I mean, I'm pretty generous when I get my hair cut. The haircut I get isn't terribly expensive compared to what the women folk go through or what other guys might go through if they go to other salons. But so I tip pretty well. And if it's not great, if I'm not thrilled with the haircut, I'm still going to tip you because I know you're working hard and it's not an easy job to do. And you know, when I go in there, I just go first available. I don't have a particular stylist that cuts my hair. I just go for first available. So you're getting different degrees of experience.
Let me ask you part B to this real quick. Do you say something?
No.
Okay.
Not unless it's I mean, I've never walked away and said, this is a god-awful haircut.
Well, I will sound off, even though I do cut my own hair, and I'm due for a cut. Probably today.
You tip yourself?
Yes. I'm very generous. I would just make, and your name again, sir, is what? Okay, great. Thank you. And remind yourself, never again. Like, I'm not going back to I'll tip them, but I'm never coming back. That's reasonable, isn't it? I don't need to be rude. Are you doing him a favor saying, hey, look, you kind of messed this up. I got a janky haircut now. Do you think they prefer to hear that? Like, hey, I'm not coming back to you, and here's why.
Some constructive criticism.
Yeah, but there's like 3 Cassies that work there. You know,
always an issue.
All right, here we go. I'm Gator. I'm kind of like you. Even if it's really bad, I don't know if I could say something. Maybe that's me being.
Yeah.
I need to stand up more.
I don't know that I could either.
I just don't go back to that.
I know my hair is tough because there's a bunch of cowlicks up in there that you really have to pay attention to. So I get it. I'm okay.
All right. Well, they're never going to learn, I guess, until we say something. I guess
that's the thing.
All right. Next question. If you could have a lifetime supply of anything, not money, what would it be?
Lifetime supply of anything, not money, what would it be? What a great question. Because there's going to be a better answer than whenever I think of right now.
Of course, yeah. I'm thinking food items, beer, you know.
It's not money.
Huh.
Is
it like pizza rolls?
Yeah, can I mean, is there any way to finagle the answer airplane tickets? Is that?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. Then it's probably chicken wings.
It's I just say Taco Bell.
Yeah?
Is it Taco Bell? I mean, I don't don't go there that often, but I mean, it's like.
What about gasoline? Does that count?
Well, for some of us, it counts.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
For the other.
Yes, I know.
Yep.
EVs exist. I know.
Not interested. Not interested.
Well, you got chicken wings.
And that might be rendered useless in the next 15 years. Chicken wings.
Is it food?
Would I go beer?
Ooh, beer?
Yeah. I mean, chicken wings, I couldn't eat a lifetime supply of chicken wings.
No, just whenever you want, though.
But yeah, it's like when you're.
Yeah, you don't have to eat it every day.
How about Thin Mint Girl Scout cookies?
Still haven't gotten mine, by the way.
Oh. Kids slacking?
I don't know, man. I haven't seen that little girl and her mom in weeks.
Did you give her cash?
No, I offered to, and she said, "No, we'll just get it when when they come." I'm like, all right, when they're gonna be here? A couple weeks. Okay. It's been 4.
Been 4 weeks?
You got to upload the app.
I wasn't given the opportunity.
All right, so I guess my final answer is, I think I'll go with chicken wings.
Can I just say Mexican food? Doug's generic with it doesn't matter where he gets them from. I'll just say Mexican food.
Like fast casual Mexican food, or just any Mexican food?
Mexican food, yeah.
Okay.
All
right.
What about you?
That's a tough one.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, food's the easy answer.
Yeah.
So if you have to go with food, for me, I can't say seafood, right? That's too broad.
That is too broad.
Like clean underwear.
As long as it's not from Fanatics.
Like you wake up every day, get out of the shower, and there's a
endless supply.
Endless supply.
All right, how about McDonald's Coke? Just whenever I want. Can I
Perfect
get that?
mix. They got that mix, man.
I know, man. You know how it is.
All right, last one.
Last question. Here we go. You don't have to say who, but is there anyone you know that might be a serial killer that just hasn't been caught yet?
That's another great question.
The worst part about this is somebody I know popped into my head immediately.
Oh, then yeah, there it is. Then the answer is yes.
Immediately.
So basically, anyone in your life that might have gotten away with murder that hasn't been caught yet, and you don't know this.
God, I feel awful. Now another name popped into my head.
Do we all have that guy?
I wouldn't be surprised
if blank.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a terrible thing to admit. And thank you for saying we don't have to say who.
Right.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
You got one, Kang? Is there somebody?
Oh,
comes?
yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a safe question. We all know.
Everybody's got that person in their life.
Everyone got somebody in their group where, like, if somebody were to have done
It's funny if you get a group of people together and you all come up with the same person. Jerry. Jeez.
That's what I was going to say.
Is he in jail yet? They catch him yet?
When they arrest a murderer, you're like, did anyone hear from Jerry?
Yeah. We confirmed it's not Jerry. All right. Thank you for all your questions. Send them over right now. Kang will put them in the tub for future Big Old Tub of Pretzels questions. These are debates you've had with your friends, things you guys have talked about or argued about. We can use those. So text them now at 248-539-9797. We promised some Piston talk. We did not get to it. So let's do that today at 12:50. Hey, get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on your favorite NBA players and teams. They got quick bets, which are a whole bunch of bets that you just easily can see and check it out and move and bet quickly. Live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/Doug and shoot your shot. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Must be 21 or older and present in Michigan. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problems? Call 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help. Doug Harsh, Scott Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for all your questions. It's a big old tub of pretzels, and we do encourage you to send in questions for future use. Text this at 248-539-9797. By the way, did we get any texts on better lifetime supplies? If you got a lifetime supply of anything except money, what would you choose?
We got golf balls.
That's a good one.
That's pretty good, right?
Yep.
You play golf.
I thought about it.
Pizza.
Yeah.
As boring of an eater you are, Doug, chicken wings was a great answer.
Thank you.
Sports tickets. I don't know if that counts, but.
Yeah, I mean, we brought up could I say plane tickets? Plane tickets was out of, I think sports tickets would be too. I mean, concession stand beer. You go to games and you could just
walk up. Oh, here you are, Mr. Karsh.
Yep. Never have to pay.
Someone who vapes at cartridges for their vape.
Well, that would not be me.
No.
Weed.
Okay. So the Pistons last night. Coming out of the All-Star break, I'm not going to say I had huge expectations. Indiana's playing for something very genuine, and that is to hang on to the last playoff spot in the Eastern Conference that doesn't have to play play-in game stuff. And so they are trying to win every game, as one would expect. Top 6 teams get, I guess we'll call them buys into the first round, but 7, 8, 9, and 10 have to play those play-in games. Pistons aren't playing for anything. So Indiana's a motivated team. I thought Detroit was called out a little bit by Benedict Mathurin of the Pacers with what he did with Jaden Ivey. Halliburton had some was laying into the Pistons a little bit for passing on him in the draft, and we're laying into the Pistons a little bit for passing on him in the draft. But I was kind of hoping that the team would respond, and they gave up 73 points in the first half.
Is that a lot? They were down by 30. Like halfway through the second quarter. It was unbelievable.
Now, to a degree, we should have expected it because we knew there were going to be large swaths of time in that game where you were going to look out on the floor and have to remind yourself exactly who Malachi Flynn is. And, oh, yeah, Evan Fournier, right? I mean, the first games as Piston kind of players. So, of course, there's going to be struggles. I was a little disappointed. I wanted Jaden Ivey to elbow somebody and dunk on people and talk mess. Now, I didn't see the entire game, but he didn't. He had a pretty nondescript 12. And those of us that really wanted 18 and a half or more than that. But anyway, I didn't really get a sense that they responded to that.
It didn't look like it. I mean, the first half, they were just, like I said, they got blown out. And Indiana was stealing everything. They had all these fast break points. They would take the shot clock down to 0, launch a three-pointer, and they'd go. I mean, everything was working for Indiana, and nothing was working for the Pistons. It looked awful. I mean, the Pistons had double-digit turnovers in the first half, which is impressive when you think that they only finished up, I think, with 15 turnovers in the game. They turned things around in the third quarter. They flipped the script. They scored over 40 points in the third quarter, and then I think they cut into that lead by 15 points. They outscored them by 15 in the third, end up going even in the fourth, losing the game by 14. But it's a game where you're watching it, and I'm saying to myself, I want the starters in there the whole time. I want them in there because these are the guys that are going to have to go with. You want to send a message every once in a while, bring the guys off the bench and have them play.
Well, they have to play.
I get it, but why can't, you see Cade Cunningham play more than 40 minutes or Jalen Duren or Jaden Ivey. These guys playing 40 minutes. And if it means it embarrasses them because they're not getting the job done, so be it. These are hard lessons to be learned. And I think even Monty Williams said the other day something to the effect of, I'm done, mixing with the lineup and seeing who can play with whom. We're moving now. We're going to try to, really win games here, for lack of better, I'm paraphrasing here. And last night it was awful. It was just, the first half was abysmal.
And it was the bench that really started the heavy bleeding. I mean, the starters weren't leading when they left the game, and the bench came in and went from bad to worse. And then, ironically, in the third quarter, when they really started to make the run, it was the bench.
Yeah. The aforementioned Fournier knocked down 3 3-pointers at one point.
Marcus Sasser looked really good for a stretch there, but
and then there are other guys like, who's that?
I mean, the thing is, here's what I struggle with, is that there are aspects of the Pistons that you can look at and get excited about. Cade Cunningham had 30 last night. We've seen Ivy go over 30 lately as well. But when you're giving up 73 points and a half, like it's the non-glamorous stuff that did they just go out and get a bunch of guys that were great 1980, early 80s vintage NBA players when the games were always 136 to 134 and nobody played any defense. Is there something about this constellation of players that they're just never going to play that end of the floor? That they just can't play that end of the floor? Or is it a product of their youth and inexperience?
It's a combination of lots of things, I think, for sure. And I keep looking back and saying the core has not played that many games together. They haven't played a full season together. I'm going to let this one, the last 27 games now, let it play out, see where they're at. But you need to see improvement, because if you don't, then you're left with, oh my God, they've had these high picks, they've missed on them, or they're mismatched. Now what do you do? Because if you already don't, let's say for instance, I think a lot of Piston fans already think that Troy Weaver's not the guy to be the general manager of this team.
Yep.
So if you already have that opinion, and then you're getting to the off season, and now you've come to the conclusion that these guys can't play together, they are mismatched, and you're going to have to break them up and now you got to find a new GM and got to start all over again. But I mean, that's the harsh reality, is that looks like that might be what it is, at least starting over with a new GM. I'm not giving up on these guys being able to play together.
And with 27 games to go, I'm starting to wonder if I'm not going to win my bet. That the Pistons at some point this season would win 3 in a row.
Well, they got
everybody wins 3 in a row at some point.
They got the Magic, the Knicks, and the Bulls coming up in the next 3 games.
Yeah. I mean, there's some stretches of the schedule that I look at, but you know how Patrick Kane said earlier that he thinks the Red Wings can beat anybody in a 7-game series.
Uh-huh.
This Piston team is perfectly capable of losing to everybody, as they have proven over and over and over. And so it's almost like not even worth. Didn't they lose to the Wizards and it cost them a 3-game winning streak? They beat 2 teams and in the middle lost to the Wizards, who was the next worst team in basketball.
They beat the Hornets.
Yep.
Lost to the Wizards, and then beat the Thunder.
Oklahoma City, right? And if they could have beaten that I'm going to look back. That's the ruining.
Oh, is that where you're going to rue?
Well, yeah, that's their 3-game winning streak. I mean, I guess ruining making the bet in the first place with Kang, and then probably ruining doubling down and bringing you in.
Thank you. I still want to pay off.
I know you do. I know you and Kang well enough to know this is a bet you want to lose.
At least make us sweat. Let's get a 2-game one, like at some point, right?
Give me some.
Yeah, let's sweat this thing. I mean, they're going to win one more game at some
we're
point.
going to get to a point in the season where I'm going to ask you guys to go double or nothing on a 2-game. Give me a 2-gamer before the year's done.
Well, the Pistons finished with more wins than Michigan.
What's Michigan at, 9 right now?
8.
So are the Pistons, right?
Yep.
Good God. Michigan's got 5 games left. Yeah, the Pistons. Yeah. Yes. Yes, I suspect that they will.
More than Michigan football.
No. That was 15. So I would argue no. All right. 248-539-9797. Interesting story on our website. If the Lions are to trade up in the first round, the 3 players they might be after, according to one NBA or NFL insider. We'll get to that today at 102 here on Carson Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket.
It felt like the late 90s or early aughts, minus the animus. The Red Wings came back to beat the Avalanche 2-1 in overtime last night, leaping Tampa for the top wildcard spot in the Eastern Conference. Patrick Kane's goal in overtime was his 10th in just 25 games with Detroit, coming off a beautiful behind-the-back pass from Dylan Larkin. Fitting that the huge win improved the Red Wings' playoff positioning, given it felt like the postseason at LCA last night, per Kane. It was the Wings' second straight win in overtime. They're 9-6 in games requiring extra hockey, 4-1 in their last 5. Next up, the Blues are in town Saturday for a noon puck drop. Here on 97.1 coverage starts at 11:45. Gio Urshela took part in infield drills at third base during Friday's spring training workout in Lakeland, less than 24 hours after the Tigers signed him to a one-year, $1.5 million deal. Detroit has transitioned Matt Vierling back to primarily playing outfield the last few days. Looks like the job at third is between Urshela and Zach McKinstry. By the way, Tigers' first spring training game tomorrow. Hear it on the Bet 1270 starting at 1. And newly adopted legislation empowers the NCAA Committee on Infractions to penalize athletic directors, presidents, and other non-coaches for NCAA violations. The new legislation and enforcement builds on the NCAA rule adopted last January that holds head coaches responsible for violations committed by others within their programs. At the Corewell Health Update Desk, I'm Beanie Howell. For more, go to 97.1 The Ticket or Odyssey.com.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I saw the story yesterday about how the NFL made $150 million off of the streaming, or they're going to make $150 million off of streaming a playoff game this upcoming year with Amazon. $150 million for a playoff game.
For one playoff game?
Yeah.
The league is going to make $150 million.
That's what Amazon is paying. $150 million. And I thought, wow, that's a lot. I know that these TV deals are getting crazy. We're not going to like this because obviously we want the game to be accessible to everyone, and you go streaming services, you can sign up for it and blah, blah, blah. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking, what does this mean for the salary cap? Well, according to Adam Schefter, the salary cap for the 2024 NFL season will be $255.4 million per team. You may ask yourself, how does that relate to what it was last year? Last year's salary cap was $224.8 million. The year prior was $208.2. So in 2022, it was $208 million per team. Now it's $255 million per team in just 2 years. People that are going to get bent out of shape about whether it's $45 or $50 million a year to re-sign Jared Goff, don't. This is the cost of doing business, and the league is making money hand over fist, and the salary cap just went up. Again, I don't know what it is percentage-wise, Doug. I would guess it's around 12, 13% that it just went up. This is crazy, but it's how much money the league can make.
Well, remember, a Goff extension wouldn't start next year either. It would start the year after. If it goes up again, which it likely will.
Of course it will. Gone up every year.
Spot Track has Goff at 12.2% right now. They've built this team with their quarterback at 12.22% of the cap. So I'm just going to go conservatively. What did you say it raised?
$31 million.
Okay. So if it raises another 31 next year, I did the math wrong. Hold on. I'm just trying to see, with a Goff raise to, let's say, $50 million. If the cap goes up $31 million again, it will be $286.4. So $50 million divided by $286.4 would be 17.4% of the cap. So his first year of the extension, he would go up 5% of the cap.
Because right now his cap number is just under 13%.
Yep. So the second year of the extension, again, and I think it's conservative to say it goes up only $31 million every year because these things raise exponentially, right?
Kind of.
It would go up to 317.4. So by the second year, it'd be down to 16%. And then it would probably be down to, by the end, it would be down to where it is right now. This is why, and 50 million is probably the high end of what he is going to get. It sounds like most projections are coming between 45 and 50. You know, Spot Track had theirs. Somebody else that had a projection.
Over the cap, maybe.
Yeah, and then there was Boomer. I think Boomer was the one that said 50. I mean, the cap raising almost engulfs all of what you have to pay for Jared Goff. And we brought this up again today because I was trying to figure out driving home yesterday why I got so triggered by the one caller late in the show that did not want Jared Goff extended because he was more interested in Hendon Hooker. Chris in St. Clair wrote us earlier about this and said, Doug, I think a big part of questioning a Goff contract is not that you don't think he's good or capable, but it's about roster construction. Are we better off with Goff or a cheaper quarterback with 1 to 3 players for the same price? I like Goff and say, let's roll with him for now. Why give him a big deal now when we can add other players? I'll go back to what sounds like the most sound philosophy moving forward, because they've actually gone out and gotten a quarterback that is putting up Stafford-esque numbers, but filling in the gaps that Stafford didn't have. He's won the division. He's won playoff games. So if you're going to have a similar stat line, which isn't everything, we all know that, you can make just about all the throws, not all of them, but just about all the throws. You're not mobile, just like Stafford, less mobile than Stafford, really, but you're winning playoff games. It seems to me like that's a harder thing to find than find a quarterback that you can win with who costs less, isn't as good, and then sign 1 or 3 other players. That's one way. Or keep Goff, take that incremental increase of the percent of the salary cap, and it would be incremental. Let's be clear. And continue drafting the way you're drafting, because that's where you save the money. We got 3 drafts of evidence that tell us our guy can find starters at cheap prices on rookie contracts. And if you don't want to bring back Goff because it costs too much, you know who else will cost too much that you don't want to bring back? Amon-Ra St. Brown. Why not sign somebody who's less than Amon-Ra and add 2 or 3 other players? Why not sign someone who costs less than Penei Sewell and add 2 or 3 other players? Or when you got guys that are in the tops in the league at what they do, keep them, and the savings come in the draft. In a lot of ways, we already have affirmation that this formula can work. So I'm glad. I mean, this is breaking news that the cap has gone up this much. But if it keeps going up, and there's no reason to believe that it won't, the percent of the cap that a Goff raise will take up will be swallowed up by the percent that the cap goes up. Now, others can do other things with the money, and they can, get into free agency, but I don't know, man. It just, to me, it's a very obvious plan, but I'm trying to be more open to these calls just because I know that everything I say and I believe isn't right. I just shouldn't get triggered by it.
Right. And at some point, though, the Lions are going to have to make a hard decision.
Well, there's going to be players.
It
might happen this offseason with Jonah Jackson. I mean, if the money wasn't an issue, Jonah Jackson would be back.
I mean, it might. Jonah Jackson, fine. I'm talking about like maybe a Pro Bowl player might have to have a decision to make. Like if you get down a couple years down the road and you're looking at, what am I going to do? We've got Aleem McNeil. We've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. We've got, Taylor Decker, Frank Ragnow, Penei Sewell, Aiden Hutchinson. All these guys are starting to make the money here. You're going to have to let somebody go. But it's a problem down the road, and it's a problem that all good teams face. You can only keep doing the replenish with the draft for so long before at some point at the back end you're going to have to kick somebody out.
In the meantime, I think I saw a stat that it's been 5 years since a quarterback on a rookie contract won a Super Bowl, and that quarterback was Patrick Mahomes. So it's basically you need to go get the GOAT, or these aren't quarterbacks on rookie contracts that are winning this game. The quarterbacks that are winning this game are veteran quarterbacks making lots of money. That probably, I mean, if we took those same calls in those cities, with the exception of Kansas City. Would people have said Stafford's overpaid in LA? Probably. Would people have said that, who else? I guess Brady. Brady was always taking a discount, though, because Brady was in a unique situation.
Well, Stafford didn't have a new contract in L.A. until after he won the Super Bowl, right?
No. But do you think, I bet people would have said, the thing about Stafford is that he's older. He's older than Goff.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes it a lot, easier to move on from a guy. I mean, Goff's still right in the prime of his career.
The two quarterbacks that challenged Mahomes the last 2 years, though, were on rookie deals.
And they both lost the game.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately
Yes.
you want to win, but I mean, they got there. It's not like it's
Yeah.
easy to get there either.
No.
Purdy and Jalen Hurts.
That's true.
I'd go with Joe Burrow when he was on his rookie deal.
But do you think in Cincinnati they're saying move on from Joe Burrow, and Philly they're saying move on from Jalen Hurts? Do you think in San Francisco they'll
I don't
say
know what
move
they're
on from
saying in
Brock
Philly.
Purdy?
Philly's a whole different animal. You don't know what they're saying in Philly.
Valid. Very valid. 248-539-9797. Maybe that eases some people's minds on a potential Goff extension.
Yeah, I'm just saying the money's going to be there. Don't get bent out of shape if you see him sign a deal, a 4-year, $200 million deal, $50 million a year, and say, oh, he's not a $50 million a year quarterback. Yeah, he is. And when you see how many quarterbacks will be making $50 million a year over the next couple of years, you should be okay with it if that ends up being the case. But this is why some people say you have to do it now. Sign him now before you have
He's going to be cheaper now than next year.
Yeah.
248-539-9797. We got sidetracked by that breaking news with the cap. If you want to continue in that direction, feel free. We'll take your phone calls on it. Does this make it a little bit easier? A little bit easier, $31 million raise in the cap. You could give Jared Goff a $20 million raise and still have $11 million of that money to spend added to your cap total. Seems like it should make it easier in the eyes of those that think it's too much money. 248-539-9797. Also, we'll get to the 3 players that a NFL insider suggests if the Lions trade up, who they might be after. It's Carson Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket.
Look, if you want to be in a comfortable house all year long, call the great folks over at Birmingham Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. They know what it takes to keep your home comfortable, and right now they're offering a deal where you can replace a clunky water heater with a tankless one for free with the purchase of a Comfort Maker furnace and air conditioning package. They've got over 100 years of combined experience. They're the team that I trust most. I've used them for both a new hot water tank and also for a thermostat. Both times they came out the next day, replaced what needed to be replaced. They were amazing. Visit them at birminghamplumbingco.com. That's birminghamplumbingco.com.
Story on 97.1 The Ticket's website by the Birchie Kid. Quotes from Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Insider on NFL.com. We've talked a lot, and we always do, about trading down. And, of course, last year, Brad Holmes famously traded down and ended up getting Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta. In the process, 2 years ago, however, he traded up from 32 to 12 and got Jamison Williams. So he could go either direction. And if he decides to go up this year, who might he go after? Daniel Jeremiah, NFL.com, says, if you're moving up for a corner, I love Terrion Arnold. He's one to me that would be worth going up and getting if he started to drift a little bit and maybe be aggressive on that one. When he says drift a little bit, I think he means if Terrion Arnold starts to drop a little bit, it might make some sense for Brad to move up and make a run at Terrion Arnold. He also throws out two other names. He would fit with them, as well as Rakestraw and Quinyon Mitchell. These three guys would be trade targets for me in terms of what fits Detroit. So, he mentioned for corners, I do wonder if they evaluate, if they have a bucket. I always talk about the bucket.
Yep.
If he's got a bucket of edge rushers and corners, he might have a bucket of players that he evaluates in the top 12. I got 12 guys in this bucket. But if they get to a point where he can trade up, and I think you only trade up if the player you get out of that bucket is an edge rusher or a corner. Maybe for an interior O lineman if they lose guys in free agency, maybe. But you don't have to trade up for a wide receiver. You don't have to trade up for a tight end, running back, quarterback. You probably don't have to trade up for a tackle unless it's a guy you're thinking about moving inside that has that versatility. Defensively, could you trade up for a defensive tackle if he's in the top bucket? We should probably include that too. Edge rusher, D tackle, and corner. If they're in that top bucket, let's say there's one edge rusher, one D tackle, one corner.
Yeah, of course, the bucket is if Brad Holmes thinks that these guys have first round grades, then yeah.
And the only team that's going to accept your deal is the team that's picking 20th or whatever. You sit there and you wait and you go, okay, there's players in the bucket, but not an edge rusher, D tackle, or corner. Or if there is, then you make that trade. Is that a little bit of both? That's being true to your board and a little positional value mixed in? Does that kind of make some sense?
Kind of. I think things change. He's got 3 drafts under his belt. He's definitely rebuilt this team and this roster, and there are fewer needs on his team now that I think you can go more positional if you feel necessary. But he can always feel comfortable relying on best player available, provided that it's not a number of positions. I think he's going to be poised to move up or back. I don't think he's staying at 29. I'm kind of with you on that. I don't know if I'm willing to shoot the boot just yet. I'm going to give it some time here, but it feels like that would be a Brad Holmes thing. Either the guy he has to have, he thinks there's only 2 corners that are worthy of a first round grade, and he's going to go get one of them. So he's going to move up. Or he feels like, you know what, there's good depth at this position. I'm gonna trade back. Because what I really want at this point, all the guys I really coveted, a defensive back or edge rusher, those guys are gone. I'm going to trade back, and I'm going to take the best interior offensive lineman.
248-539-9797. Let's go to Chris. You're on 97.1 The Ticket. Hi, Chris.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Great, Chris.
So I actually had a couple things I wanted to say. First, obviously we know Goff is elite at his position. He's in the NFL for a reason. He's top at his position for a reason. I think that, he deserves in the neighborhood of 50, probably 48 is about appropriate. A team-friendly deal, 42, 43, we'd be cooking. 45, I think, is kind of fair for both sides, kind of where they'll probably land. But I'd love to see him at 42, 43. But I have a question for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
I think, before we put the cart ahead of the horse and we start talking about replacements, first of all, Hendon Hooker, if he turns out to be elite, great. We've got us an Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre situation. Excellent. Great. But until then, in the league, you have to be really special to be able to displace someone like Jared Goff. So, guys, how many people are even in the league right now that could displace Jared Goff? How many are there, and who are they? And, what would they deserve to earn in this position? That's really what we need to look at. And so I'll hang up. I just really want to hear what you guys have to say about
it's
that.
Interesting. It's funny. You're asking us, and the first thing that I would do is turn around and ask Ben Johnson. I don't think our opinions really matter. With all respect due to us. Ask Ben Johnson, and you don't have access to Ben Johnson. Maybe if we ever get him on, we can ask him. Actually, he probably wouldn't say so publicly. Behind closed doors in those meetings when they talk about every player on their team and whether or not they can improve a position. This is a two-parter. Hey, Ben Johnson, for what you want to do with this offense that was amongst the best in the NFL, which quarterbacks would you rather have running it than Jared Goff? A. And B, do you have accessibility to those quarterbacks? Like, let's say he says, well, the two I would want most are Patrick Mahomes and Jared Allen, who both have massive contracts signed with their team, and you don't have accessibility to them. I mean, the thing that I think people are way too easy to say they want is to give it to a young, unproven quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Because...
And no one's more unproven than Hendon Hooker.
I mean, literally in the league, as far as preparedness and what they've shown to be prepared, there's probably a small bucket of quarterbacks at the very, very bottom. If each team basically has 3 on the roster, he's probably in the bottom 10th of guys in terms of how much they have proven and shown because he was hurt.
Yeah, I mean, trying to go through an exercise like the caller wants us to do is kind of futile. It's if you, let's say you really believe in Hendon Hooker. You're going through the offseason workouts, and this guy stands out. He looks great, and you're like, I can't wait to have this guy play. Plays in the preseason, does well enough that you feel like, okay, I think we can build around this guy. Maybe he's going to have a steep learning curve, or he's going to get there quicker, I should say. But what you can do, because you're saving money on the contract, is make up for the deficiencies that he would have. With Jared Goff, you don't necessarily have the greatest wide receiver core because he's got it between his ears. He knows where guys are supposed to be, and the offensive line is outstanding, right?
Yep.
If you throw somebody else in that mix, how do you get that person up to that level without having that skill set? How do you make up for that? Well, you make up for it by having a better group of receivers, or you improve the offensive line.
Better defense. Gives
better
you
defense, exactly.
Position.
You got all these other things, but you would have money to spend on that because you're not spending $50 million a year on a quarterback. You're spending, a couple $1 million a year on a quarterback.
Here's the thing about the money to spend is even the money to spend is an unknown. Like you say, we can get 2-3 players for the $35 million we'd save on quarterback. Yeah, but that's an unknown as well. And if we look at Brad Holmes, it's an unknown who you're going to draft, but his hit rate is so high that them paying for Goff, Sewell, and St. Brown, and maybe even keeping Jonah Jackson, and basically only every year replenishing your roster with who you draft, seems like the closer to a predictable success rate than complete unknown at quarterback, complete unknown in free agency. And I'd have to go back and look at the free agents that Holmes has signed, the veteran players that he's acquired or traded for. And it feels like he's more likely to swing and miss at those. Those are ones you should have a higher hit rate at. They're known commodities in the league.
Right. Or, the other way to look at it, another way to look at it, I should say, is if 2 years down the road here and you're still not sure what you're going to do. Do I sign to if you haven't signed Goff to an extension, but you're contemplating, do I franchise tag him or not?
Mm-hmm.
At that point, let's say that it's pretty clear that they need help on the offensive line now because they didn't pick up Jonah Jackson. They're trying to do it with Sorsdal and whatever else they have, and it hasn't worked out to that level. And it looks like Frank Ragnow may be done, and who knows what you're doing with Taylor Decker. If you're having to overhaul the entire offensive line, Does that give you pause on giving an extension to a quarterback whose success is largely hinged on having that really good offensive line?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a complete group, right? They kind of had to sort out the Vitae thing. They had injuries this year where Ragnow and Jonah Jackson missed some games.
Because I honestly don't think the offensive line is going to get better. I think it's really good, but I don't think it's going to get better because of the holes they have.
But how much longer is it going to stay the same?
Exactly.
It's a valid question. I mean, that's why I went in thinking Jonah Jackson's gone. And now I don't think so. I think they're going to try to keep him. And with the cap going up $31 million and probably another $30 million next year, there's $60 million. That's the Goff contract. So give Jonah Jackson the money to keep him. I don't know.
I thought I saw somebody tweet out, and it was Justin Rogers or somebody like that said that the cap has gone up like $13 million more than they expected it to.
Yeah.
Like this $31 million raise is huge.
248-539-9797. Phone calls, feedback. Carson Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. Doug Carr, Scott Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. Open lines, 248-539-9797. Hey, thanks for all the Red Wing calls earlier today and the feedback. That was fun. Getting into that team as they're making their postseason push. And we'll continue taking your calls and thoughts on the Red Wings. Nice win last night. And now 6 points into the playoffs. And actually starting to look up a little bit at Toronto for third in the division. Yes, sir. In the meantime, we continue with your phone calls. We go to DJ. You're next. Hi, DJ.
What up, though, my dogs?
How are you?
Good?
We're good.
All right.
Yes.
I'm great, man. Enjoying this global warming. It's middle of February, and it's 55 degrees out here. Like, I'm enjoying it. So this is what I have. I got two things for you guys, man. Number one, it's kind of like a weird situation because Jared Goff does what he's supposed to do with the offensive line this good. You get what I'm saying? Like, any quarterback that can play with this offensive line is going to do what he did. So it's kind of hard to say, he's worth the $50 million because it's like, dude, I'll give you guys an example because people push back on that like, well, he's this. Guess what? When the Washington Redskins had a team like ours to where their identity was the offensive line and it was everything that they were, they won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks, but the mainstay was Jim Lachey and the Hogs. We're kind of in that same predicament, and the stats prove it. When that offensive line is rolling, we money. You get what I'm saying? So it puts us in a tight position where we don't have to pay him, but we probably will because he deserves it because he makes the throws that he should.
I guess I'm not sure I'm really willing to take that chance because I think it's more than just the O-line. I think it's the marriage with the offense that they are running, which is heavily influenced by Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell. And there are such things, like I think it's between the line and the system, it's almost like this perfect fit. And so I'm not willing to necessarily take the chance that you can go get a lesser quarterback that costs less that can do as much behind this O-line.
I'm with you, my dog, but what does the numbers and stats say to the last few years? When they're together, they're money. When they're not healthy, he plays terrible. So that's just what it is. That's on paper. It's them.
I haven't seen a stat laid out like that. Have you seen it?
There's the win-loss record when the offensive line is healthy that they didn't lose in a regular season. When all those guys went together, it was like 7-0 or something like that.
Yeah,
so
but
I understand what DJ's saying.
that doesn't mean that Goff was terrible. That was his words.
I don't mean he's terrible, but like, for instance, 2 years ago against Buffalo, when our guards was hurt, that one kid from Buffalo dominated us. Goff was looking bad that game. It was another game where our offensive line was hurt. He was looking bad. That's all I'm not. And guess what? Pay the dude because he deserves it, but it's an iffy situation. That's number one. Real quick, number two, I just want to throw to you guys, man. Last year this time, we with Jalen Carter, defensive line. The Lions had pretty much the same hold they got this year, man. They needed defensive times and corner. We all around here talking about Jalen Carter and all this. That dude went out and got us a Pro Bowl running back, tight end, and a starter at middle linebacker. Nobody's seen that coming. So I'm saying that to say none of us know what that mad scientist.
No, we have no idea what he's going to do there.
Nope, you're right. You're 100% right. And we brought it up yesterday. And let me be clear here. I asked the question as follows. Can he do virtually anything and we should accept it? And the answer is not yes. But the word was virtually, not literally. Can he do almost anything? And as we talked it through, there were like 2 or 3 positions that at 29 make no sense. Outside of that, you can make a case that Brad Holmes is making a play for the future or a play for the now. And what'll get people, but even who's the tight end from Notre Dame they passed on, took Laporta instead?
Michael Mayer.
Yeah. Could have got Mayer.
If everyone trusts Brad Holmes like they say they do, okay, then if he wants to extend Goff with a $50 million contract, don't you trust there's a reason why he would give Jared Goff $50 million? Because if he could do this with almost any other quarterback, why wouldn't he save himself the money and do that? If he could do this with Tyrod Taylor or Gardner Minshew, wouldn't he save himself a ton of money and just do that? And I agree, Jared Goff is way better when the offensive line is together. But that doesn't mean anyone can do it behind that offensive line.
It really,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, this is like, if anyone would know this, Campbell and Holmes would know this. They would save themselves the money and go get any quote-unquote capable quarterback.
Yeah, and it's funny because there are less capable quarterbacks, in my opinion, that are going to get paid similar money this offseason as Jared Goff.
Now, if I told you Baker Mayfield could do the same thing Jared Goff did at $35 million a year, wouldn't you do it? Okay, but there's no guarantee that Baker Mayfield's going to do that. That's what I'm saying.
You say that, and I'm thinking no effing way.
Yeah,
but if you really truly believe that,
but if you believe that, you'd do it.
Yeah, does that make me feel more comfortable with the Baker Mayfield option with a little more cap space? Nope.
I'd rather have Jared Goff.
Again, if they're going to re-sign their good players and replenish in the draft, Brad Holmes has almost said as much at the podium. Now, he's not going to give away the entire game plan, but doesn't that seem like a solid?
Can't we just enjoy to run it back? Can we do that? I mean, for at least a year, can we just run it back? There's no controversy here. None. If you want to have how about we push the controversy off a year from now when you have to make the choice to extend him or not?
Yeah.
And at that point, it's a new contract because he'd be a free agent. Can we do that?
Well, this is how I felt 24 hours ago when I got triggered. I'm trying to be more open-minded.
It just seems like
less triggering.
You know, we just made it to the NFC Championship game, and it doesn't look like they're losing any key players to free agency.
Maybe Jonah Jackson, but I
Again,
feel better about that.
Yeah, if they want to bring him back, they could. They can absolutely bring everybody back if they want to. All right, I want to enjoy it. One more year, let's run it back. No harm.
Yep.
And in fact, not only can they bring back everyone, they can also bring some others in with them. Because some guys were 1-year contracts and they didn't work out. So go out and get somebody else.
248-539-9797. Joe is next on 97.1. What's up, Joe?
Hey, how you guys doing?
We're good, Joe.
Hey, I just caught about Goff, which I think we don't focus on enough, is what an outstanding play-action quarterback he is. Not every quarterback in the NFL has those hand skills, and he also can read the defense. I don't care he can't run, but he's exceptional in other areas that fit our team, fit our program, and fit what we want to do. Why mess with it? Pay him.
Yep. I mean, it would be awfully risky to not bring him back. And the question is, the upside of signing him now is saving some money long term. But I'm going to guess it's. I mean, does anybody think this team isn't going to compete next year?
Well, Doug, I have a quick question. What percent did the salary cap go up year over year?
13%.
The last 2 years.
13%.
Well, from last year to this year, it's 13%.
Of money. Yeah, and I don't see that shrinking based on how horrible the NBA is and everything else around. We have plenty of money. 50 is not a big deal. It's not a lot of money.
It won't end up being a big deal.
It's a cheap contract.
It's not going to end up being a big deal when all is said and done.
Joe, thank you for the phone call. Appreciate it. 248-539-9797.
And the NBA is doing just fine, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know why he's taking shots at the National Basketball Association.
Len is next. Hi, Len.
Hey, guys. I was just going to say, I think Holmes has a very high regard for Goff. But if we delay Goff this year, I wouldn't blame him if he decided to go where they will pay him next year. You know, he's in his prime right now, and his record speaks for itself. And so I think if we lose him, we'd be back to a 5 or 6 win team. You know, everyone's trying to save money on Goff. Quarterback's the most important position in football. We all know that. He handles the ball on every offensive play. I can't see why we're trying to save money on him. Try to save money on the other players who are happy to play with him.
Well, I mean, I don't want to have the same conversation about Penei Sewell and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I want to pay them market value as well. These are the best players on the team that led to the best season that they have had. The guys that are going to suffer are the mid-tier guys that they just simply have to let walk, even though they're players you'd like to keep around. But you're going to lose your Tracy Walkers and your Romeo Okwara's likely, and eventually a Malcolm Rodriguez. And some players are going to cycle out a little bit earlier than we'd like because they have to save money and replace those guys with players on rookie contracts.
When they finally come to deals with these players, I will venture to guess that Penei Sewell will be paid top 3 at his position, top 3 among tackles.
Yep, and I'm okay with that.
And as he should, because he's the best right tackle in the NFL, and he might be the best tackle in the NFL, period. When Amon-Ra St. Brown decides to sign an extension, if it's this year, when they do extend him, I imagine he will get top 8 wide receiver money because he's the top 8 receiver, and he'll get it. When Jared Goff gets his extension, whether he signs it this year or next year, I don't know if Jared Goff is going to end up being top 8 quarterback money. Or I don't think he'll be top 5 quarterback money for sure.
In terms of annual value.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's
if
because
he's at 50
he's
million,
not a top 5 quarterback.
If he's at 50 million, he will be 5th. But if he gets
That's before anybody else has signed their extension.
True.
Who are in the same.
And the Patrick Mahomes numbers are weird. Somebody said Mahomes is tied with Burrow, and everything I look at, Mahomes is less than him. So he might be 6th. I don't think he's going to get north of 50. That's where it starts to get uncomfortable.
Well, and this is where you have other quarterbacks whose deals are coming due, ready for an extension, like Trevor Lawrence, Dak Prescott. These are other guys that are on this list.
Kirk.
Right, but I don't think Cousins is going to get as much. All right, I stop it. You're sending a bad signal.
I did that for one reason and one reason only.
But I guess my point is, when it comes time to re-sign players like Sewell and St. Brown, they're going to get paid according to what the market is without question. I mean, Sewell could set the market at tackle. St. Brown could come close to setting the market at wide receiver.
Yesterday we brought up the $600 every player is getting for EA Sports College Football game.
Right.
There apparently is some bend in that. There are some allowances for the more marquee players. We will get to that today at 1:46. It's Carson Anderson, Open Lines, 97.1 The Ticket. Hey, get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. So just find a heavy favorite, people. Heavy favorite, $5 down on them. Get $150 in bonus bets. Bet all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/Doug to shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Must be 21 or older and present in Michigan. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problems? Call 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help.